Good morning once again, and thank you for staying tuned to Sunrise at Sea here on CTV. Welcome to our views. Yes, I almost said wellness, but also it's also part of wellness. Welcome to our views, and this is a segment where we talk about real life conversations. And today is Monday, the 30th of May, 2022. We are diving into the conversation in regard to humility. This Friday, it will be Uganda Matters celebration. And yes, also that is in line with humility. I thought that this is the right time that we get to talk about the conversation in regard to humility. First of all, while growing up, you know, our parents are always telling us you have to be humble. Back at school, they're telling us you have to be humble because humility is a virtue. Even the Bible talks about humility, that when you are humble, you will be exalted. And this refers to, you know, taking the back seat and waiting on when you should be called upon. And yes, this has also, you know, I can call it a controversial conversation or controversial topic because so many people have talked about when you are too humble, people will walk all over you. Well, there's multiple examples. It could be in the workspace, it could be back at home, it could be even in friendship. So today we are going literally to talk about the downsides as well as the upsides of humility. And the ladies will also give us the experiences in regard to humility and how people can go about it. And joining me at the center of this conversation today, to my far left, that is Sarah Apollo, and seated right next to me is Siobhan Auma. Good morning, ladies, and happy Monday.
Morning.
Okay, so just to define for you what humility is, yes, humility is the quality of having a modest or low view of one's importance. And also, if we are to bring it in the Latin description of it, or the Latin, how the Latins take it, this is it means low or it's the meaning of low or small, and it also means the quality of being free from pride and having a low down-to-earth view of your own importance, or you can call it significance. And also, people who exhibit humility tend to view others as equals or superiors. This is in regard to, even if it's your boss, you'll find, you know, your boss and subordinates, that you are humble in such a way that people may not even know that you are the boss. You have found instances where people are like, that is your boss, he's way too humble, you know. And also, just to give you 3 ideas of how humility can be packaged, there is relational humility, and this is a form of honesty and accuracy rather. You see yourself as no more or less important than you really are. And the other one is to be humble. You must consider the welfare of others as highly as you view your own. And lastly, humility tends to show up at moments when pride is most likely. And I derived this conversation from an author, and that is Karthik Pasupathy, who talked about stop being too humble, it won't get you anywhere. I was very intrigued, and you know, I was reading multiple articles. I also did watch some videos in regard to humility, and so many people talk about being way too humble is not a good thing. So to the ladies today, I'd like to ask you, do you think that humility can be a bad thing? Starting with you, Siobhan.
This Kampala, this Uganda has no, we don't have space for humble people. I mean, humility is a virtue, or is something very many, especially when it comes to ladies, it is very much attributed to, first of all, the women. You know, as a woman, you're supposed to be humble, you're not supposed to be a go-getter, you know. But unfortunately, the world that we live in, you cannot afford to showcase humility. One, either you'll be stepped on or you'll be taken for granted. So survival is for the fittest. But again, chances are high that many cases, the people who you find very humble have already made it in life. But how did they make it in life? They made it in life by being go-getters, by, you know, reaching out even for things that no one thought they would. So humility, yes, is something that we need in our day-to-day life. However, I strongly believe that humility is for people who have the luxury to be humble. If you are to survive, let's say, in the job market, if you're looking for a job, you cannot just say, let me cut back, and, you know, and people, I feel like very many people confuse humility for, you know, it's one thing to be humble and to showcase humility, but it's another thing to be shy. Some people think being shy is being humble. No, being shy, you're just afraid to step out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
But being humble is, you know, you might want to sit back and relax and, you know, not showcase that maybe you're intelligent. The other time we talked about being overly intelligent. you know, you keep quiet and you keep acting like you're not the most intelligent person, or when you're CEO of something, like people do not get to know, like you mentioned, you can be like, hey, Siobhan is actually the CEO of this company. How come you expect her to behave in a different way? So for me, humility, in this Kampala,
No. Sarah, what do you think of humility? Do you think it's a bad thing?
First off, humility also means freedom from pride and arrogance. And just like Siobhan says, some people mistake humility for to be something else. Like she says, some people could be shy, some people could be insecure. You could be insecure of your body, and then you tend to cover up a lot and say, oh, she's humbly dressed. Or you are afraid to speak up. You're insecure because you are afraid to speak up. And people are like, oh, she's humble, she doesn't, you know, fight. You're kind of person who avoids confrontation, and you are, you know, trying to say that is humility, and yet you have underlying insecurities. So it's very important to understand what humility is. A lot of people who are humble are just that way naturally. They don't mind. They don't mind, you know, taking a walk. They don't mind taking a border. They don't mind sitting by the roadside and eating street food. You don't mind. It's just who you are as a person. And I think it becomes, people take advantage of you when they when they see that it is not humility that you have, but you have an insecurity. So people are going to take advantage of that. Do you understand? I don't know if I'm making sense. People are going to take advantage of that. If you're the kind of person who avoids confrontation, who is afraid to use your voice and you know, speak up for yourself, that is what people are going to take advantage of, not your being humble. Because humble people are choosing to be humble. It's not that it's something that has been forced on them. If somebody doesn't mind sitting and for instance, finding street children, and then, you know, sits by the roadside and has a meal with them or has a conversation, you're choosing that. So I don't think people can take advantage of that, and I don't think that can ever be a bad thing. People identify your insecurity, and we like to think that we cannot be read, but there are people who can read people, and that is what they take advantage of. So they are taking advantage of your insecurity, not your humility.
Do you understand? Think sometimes it's not even about the insecurity? It's maybe if you are the kind, you've heard of the saying of, don't take my kindness for weakness. There's those people who are usually very kind, who come off as, you know, very simple, and, you know, they're always receptive to everything. And yes, we cannot downplay the fact that we do have people in our society who will take advantage of people who are way too nice, way too humble. They do.
Are you humble? Are you too kind? Or are you a pushover?
That is a mixture.
That is what exactly you need to identify. That are you a pushover or are you a kind person? Like I said, humility, you choose to do it. I am going to choose to be kind to you even though you don't deserve it. And like, you know what, she's an awful person or he's an awful person. I'm going to choose to, you know, turn the other cheek. That is humility. When you are a pushover, people are going to take you for granted. And many times when people have the thing of, oh, you're taking my kindness for granted or whatnot, you have given people chances over and over and over again. And when you even make that statement, now you're expecting it to be reciprocated. Humble people don't expect reciprocation. I'm doing it because I want to do it. So whether you appreciate it or not, that is on you. But when people make statements like that, then you want it to be reciprocated, and it takes away from your humility. Do you understand? When you expect reciprocation for any action that you do, it takes away from the fact that you're being a humble person.
Yes. And one thing, just to add on to what Sarah said, when it comes to things like humility, so as not to confuse, for very many people, being humble or showcasing humility comes naturally for them. It's just a natural thing. It's not something forced upon some. Like if you said, okay, you're a media personality, but it's okay to walk to work sometimes. It's okay to take a border. Like certain things that should matter to you don't actually matter to you. Like I'll give an example. There is a time I had left the country and I had attended an event, and I was very surprised to find that the CEO of a certain company, which I'll not mention, was just like any day-to-day person. But when he was interviewed, he said, for me, it comes naturally. Like, I
that
do
is
not
who you
have
are.
to
Yes, you
show.
don't have
I do
to.
not have to show that I have. You find most of these people that you find putting on Crocs shirts and white shirts, those are the billionaires of Kampala. Now, those are the real. And again, it comes naturally. Like, it's a natural thing for me. Like, yes, I have the money. Yes, I am this and this, but yeah, it is okay to once in a while grab chikokof off the street. It's okay. It's fine. It doesn't make me less of a human being. But again, it comes naturally. For some people, it's a way of, it's a means to an end. Some people pretend to be humble, either to get into something or get away from something. Now,
Maybe they are told,
that's not even
they're
being
told
humble.
to be humble. Or maybe they're told to be humble.
I don't think you can be taught to be humble.
You can be. The Bible tells us to be humble. Every other time, church sermons, they're telling you, even if you're rich, even if what, you need to be humble.
This is what Shivani
it is in the Bible.
say.
It can be in the Bible. Your parent can tell you, Sarah, you're supposed to be a humble girl. But if you do not want to be humble, you will choose not to be humble. It's an inside thing. It's sort of like how they say patience is a virtue, but not everyone has that virtue. Or how they say we're supposed to have common sense, but it's not common. Common sense is actually not common. You understand where I'm coming from?
Well, yeah, exactly. You're saying that we are taught to be that. It is. It's. You're making it.
It's
when
not
you
a
say it's
lesson.
like it's a requirement. You have to be humble. But if you are required to be humble, then it takes away from the fact that you have the
not
virtue
authentic.
of humility.
Yes.
You don't
Exactly.
have it completely.
Okay.
It comes down to you as a person. Like, you don't mind. I don't mind not wearing designer brands. I don't mind eating on the street. I don't mind walking to work. I don't mind. You understand? Like, I don't mind letting somebody else lead. Like, it doesn't bother me. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it has, you don't, it's not taught. Virtues are not taught. It's something that you just have as a person.
But you can learn it. You can learn it.
No,
It's possible that you can learn to be humble. You know that, right?
The thing about being humble is that if you're forced to be humble, or if you go on a course where you're learning humility, it's not humility anymore, because it is something that you are not. Being humble and showcasing humility comes from within. It is a within thing. It's something that comes as a personality as well. It is not taught in any school, by the way. Yes, the Bible will mention be humble and what, but let me tell you, if you force someone to be humble, that already is not humility in a way. But there's something that Sarah mentioned which is very profound. Like, you say, like, I mean, if someone wants to lead, you lean back, and that is humility. But again, humility in its own way can be you digging up your own grave.
Okay.
Because if you're constantly saying, I don't care, let her lead, let me sit back. Or it's okay eating street food, or it's okay to dress a certain kind of way. You may not care, but the people who see you tend to have a totally different opinion of you.
Okay. Now let's first get into, the downsides of being humble or being overly humble. Actually, let's take it like that, being too humble. One of them is you won't get to use your skills. You would have learned a skill with passion and commitment, but if you aren't using it at the right time, which also comes in handy, it always has to be the right time. And you also have to put in 100%. But when you are trying so hard to be humble, you will not put in all the work that you need to do. You will not always stand out, stand for whatever you want to do, because you want to take the back seat. You want people to view you as someone who is humble. The other thing is people will underestimate you. Now, probably the most direct effect of being too humble is that your peers will underestimate you. If nobody hears about the great things you have done or what promising projects you are working on, they will definitely not know. I mean, you have to stand up and say, I have something coming up, I want to do this, or I am doing that. But if you take the back seat trying to be too humble, definitely people will underestimate you. And the other one, people will use you. If you are too humble, others may take advantage of you. They will use you to get their work done. They will know that you won't come out and say much about it. You will be the ladder for others' growth. And in most cases, people don't appreciate the ladder they use to climb on top. I think that is very self-explanatory. The other one, your skills and accolades will go unnoticed. People will not be able to acknowledge your skill set or be aware of what you have accomplished if you're being too humble about your business. If you don't say anything, or at least show people what you are doing, they will definitely not know about it. And I think this this also speaks to people, especially when you have, let's say it could be a business that you are starting up. Be out there on social media. Yes, definitely people will always have certain things to say about you, especially negative things. But if you know the goal that's at hand, then definitely you need to put yourself out there. For as long as you are not coming off as arrogant and proud, for as long as you are doing it the right way, that is what matters the most. And the other one is you'll end up being a follower rather than a leader, and this is very important. Now, being overly humble can result in you becoming a follower rather than a leader. Constantly being soft-spoken, letting others dictate decisions with their input or not fully utilizing your abilities to provide value can lead you to taking a backseat. Now, the individuals who are willing to speak up, prove to people what they can do or show others what they have achieved, and will ultimately be the ones to lead and continue to strive. Now, that speaks for someone out there who is always taking the backseat, that, you know, sometimes stand up for yourself. If you see something is wrong, if you see you're treated in any kind of way that is not good, that you do not take in a good way, be able to speak up for yourself. Now, Bishop T.D. Jakes, who is a celebrated, is a bishop, and also he's an author and a very good public speaker, did talk about, he said that a lot of people perceive to be humble, that a lot of people that we perceive to be humble are not actually humble. And being humble does not come on face value, because people think when you are quiet, when you are not speaking up, when you are too shy, that means you are humble. And he said that is not what it means. He also mentioned that humility is not a facial expression, that is one, and then humility that we usually buy into as a people is fake humility. Buy what you want to buy, drive what you want to drive, eat what you want to eat, whatever it is you want to do, for as long as you are not encroaching on anyone's, not just privacy, but, happiness. And so, ladies, I'd like to ask you, do you think that in one way or another, we mistake confidence? We mistake, it could be courage, it could be assertiveness, confidence, all that. We mistake it for arrogance and pride. And this is also in line with humility.
This is what I want to say. Again, it goes back to, are you humble or are you a pushover? Are you humble or do you have underlying insecurities?
Or are you just illiterate?
Or ignorant?
Exactly.
This is the thing. Right? Right? This is the thing. Because you're humble does not mean that you are going to be a pushover. Because you're humble does not mean you shouldn't speak up for yourself. Because you're humble does not mean that you should let people take you for granted. Somebody can be, when we have spoken, given the definition of what humility is and what it means to be humble, that is the freedom of being proud and being arrogant. So now please put that into when I'm talking about humility, please put that in that context. Because to be humble is not to allow people to take you for granted. And yes, Bishop T.D. Jakes is absolutely right, and I agree with him on that. You don't get it at face value. Because you're humble. Look at Jesus Christ was humble, but was he a pushover? No. Does it mean that he was arrogant? Are you trying to say that he was arrogant? He was humble. He was a humble man. That is how the Bible describes him. Mother Teresa, she was very humble, and she felt that other people's, poor people's needs were just as equally important as us. But she's gone on to be a trailblazer. And we're studying about her. She's a legend. She's a saint. You understand? Was she a pushover? No. But she was very humble. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you come down to people, who speak up for themselves, you ask the question, does it equate to pride or arrogance? No. You see one thing about this, human beings is that when you draw boundaries, and tell people how you want to be treated, then they're going to say you're proud. They're going to say you're arrogant. Like, no. You're not going to talk to me that way. I'm not being proud. I am setting a boundary because I don't want you to talk to me that way. Does not take away from the fact that I'm a humble person. Doesn't mean that I am not a good person. And another thing that you stated in all the examples you gave about the disadvantage of being
too humble.
Being too humble. That is not being humble. Again, it takes us back to, do you have an underlying insecurity where you're now doing everybody's work? Are you are kissing up to everybody? You know, you probably have attention issues. You want to get attention. You want to be liked. That has nothing to do with being humble or humility. So people need to check themselves. Another thing, when you talked about being underestimated, you see the story of David and Goliath. You know why he won that fight? Because Goliath underestimated him. And my mom told me the best thing that could ever happen to you is have people underestimate you. Because when they underestimate you, they don't see you as a threat.
They don't see it coming.
Exactly.
That right there is a weapon.
They don't see it coming, and you can use that to your advantage to, go far in life. So let us check ourselves. Are you humble? Or
But besides
do you have
that,
underlying
Sarah,
just a minute. I talked about something of ignorance, and we laughed about it. But you see, even while we're talking about being proud and arrogant, very many people hide under humility to hide their ignorance. You're called upon
pretentious humility.
You're called upon for a debate. I'm humble. I can't do that. No, you're ignorant. You didn't do research. You're actually ignorant. That is the truth of the matter. So I think we need to move away from that. That is why actually we're insisting that humility and being humble is not something that is taught. And like Sarah said, for very many people out there, for them, their idea of being humble is being a pushover. They cannot say no. They're constantly saying, yes, okay, yes, I'll do this. Even when it's not in your job description, you say, yes, I'll do it because you're the humble person. No. You have got to stand up for your rights. And that is why very many times women are taken advantage of, because why? We are supposed to be the humble ones. We are not the ones supposed to stand up for our rights. We are not the ones supposed to say, no, I do not want this. I actually want this. You do not have a choice. That is confusing ignorance, being naive with humility.
Another thing is that people like to equate humility to poverty. They expect you to be poor. They expect you to, not want to have nice things. They expect you to have a poverty mindset.
Under the guise.
You be humble. You're not humble. You always are wearing expensive things. What does that have to do with anything?
What is wearing expensive things?
Bishop T.D. Jakes just said that it has no face. You can have whatever it is that you want. You can buy whatever it is that you want and still be humble.
Absolutely.
Drive your Ferrari and you're still humble enough to give anybody who wants a ride a ride.
And that is where people get it wrong. That is exactly where people get it wrong. People think the aspect of being humble means you have to move from your pomp nature and come down to a muntu awasi. If you have the money, what is wrong with going to a nice restaurant and having a nice glass of wine and doing shots? It's not equated to being humble in any way.
Exactly.
But for us in the African setting, being humble is when you sit on a border yet you have a car, is when you choose to forego your property and you stay in a muzigo.
Okay.
Where you're supposed to reduce so that you meet people there.
Why don't people meet you there?
Meet me up over here. All right?
We're talking about, being underestimated when you are humble. And Sarah, you mentioned that, sometimes it's an underlying insecurity. But here's the thing. Okay, basing on what they talk about, be humble yourself and you will be exalted. I have encountered multiple times, even when, in the workspace, where even your boss or, they're telling you need to be humble. You need to calm down. Yes, you have these qualities. Yes, you can do this. You're overtaking. No, it's actually the reality. You're overtaking up space. You understand? So you find yourself in a predicament where, like, you know what? Let me sit back and wait to be called upon to do something. I don't think it's an insecurity there.
Let me tell you something. And this is something, I think there's a time, Sarah, you highlighted it at the beginning episodes when we were doing Sunrise at Sea. One slogan that I have is that if you feel that I am shining too bright for you, please wear sunglasses, because I'm not going to tone it down under the guise of being humble. You're talking about, okay, let me wait up. Who is going to call you? You're talking about a job description. Let's say that your boss is telling you need to calm down. Where in this, with the rising fuel and commodity prices, where do you get to be humble and wait to be called upon?
Listen, about what you just said, Aggie, this is my take on it. When you're in a workspace, to be humble, I beg your pardon. To be humble means to accept when you're wrong. That is humility.
That is key.
I was wrong. I apologize. And how can I do better? That is humility. When somebody asks you to follow their lead, humility.
Yes.
And and when you allow somebody else to take the lead, that is humility. That does not mean I
Even
have
when
to
you
dim
know
my
that
shine.
you know better.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that does not mean that you have to dim your shine. Working in a team where you respect your colleagues and your team leader, that is humility. It has nothing to do with you having to reduce or downplay your skills or your intelligence. It has, again, people think that being humble, you have to have a poverty mindset. No.
A grasshopper mindset, actually. It's a grasshopper mindset.
Especially in a work environment, it's respecting your superiors and also respecting your subordinates and also respecting your colleagues. That is humility. Where you come and you ask, is this seat taken? That is humility. You get? Can I please use your pen? Asking, saying the words please. Humility.
You know, another thing about humility is accepting that you might not have it all
Thank
or
you.
understand it all. Like accepting that when it comes to, say, business stories, Sarah could probably be better at it, and that is okay. Like work upon being a better person instead of now acting under the guise of you are humble. No.
Also asking questions. I don't know. Admitting, I don't know.
Admitting
please
to
help
ignorance.
me. Yes, I don't know. Please help me out. Is humility in a workplace. You people stop this
Stop
stuff.
trivializing.
This shenanigans of you have to dim your light to be humble. No, you don't have to. You're not asked to do so.
But
Again, I go back to the example of Jesus Christ. Did he dim his light?
But you
No.
see,
Even when he was, sentenced and persecuted and beaten, did he dim his light? No, he did not. But he was humble.
I like the fact that you've mentioned Jesus Christ, and
This is the best example.
Very many Christians mistake that in a certain way. You know, I've found born agains, and this one I'll say it because it does exist. I found born agains, I found Christians and Catholics who want to mimic the life of Jesus. What does that mean? I cannot drive an expensive car. I cannot wear makeup because Jesus was humble. No. That's not being humble. I think we perceive Jesus' humility in a totally different way. That is why when someone finds you, guy, you have made it in life, you have done your nails, you look good, you've done makeup, you're not a child after God's own heart. You're not humble. You have to be putting on the long things that you will know. That's not the way it's supposed to be.
They want to suppress you.
Okay, ladies. So these are some of the ways that you can, and this was an article written by Forbes, and they did mention some of the ways that you can actually ascertain that you are actually trying to be rather too humble. Now, people just do not know the distinction between being humble and being way too humble. Those are two different things. And one of them is they talked about striking the right balance between overconfidence and humility. And this is what they had to say. In this time of crisis, we see polarity in everything. We debate what leaders should do, whether they should reopen businesses and maintain social distance, whether they should invest in more talent now or for the future. And it goes on to say, and I'll just paraphrase, they talked about you have to do what you have to do irrespective of what. Now, you have to do what's in line with what you're being told to do, especially if it's right. If they talk about wear your mask, then wear your mask. Do not be too proud and say, you know what, I can't wear my mask. Who are you to tell me? This happens. I'll be honest with you. I have encountered situations whereby, well, right now, it's okay to not wear a mask, but you find, yes, yes,
Are you sure?
yes. But like you're entering into a mall and there's this certain big man who has come with their huge car and they're telling them, there are scaries and those people who check them, they're telling them, please kindly wear your mask. And because you see this person as way too smaller than, the person that you are, you cannot wear your mask. What are you going to do to me? I am this big person and you are that small person. So they're talking about, if it's something about wearing a mask and they were referring to the COVID-19 pandemic situation, then wear your mask. It doesn't matter whether you're the president, it doesn't matter whether you're the CEO, it doesn't matter what big position you have. You need to do the right thing. And the other one they talked about, you keep saying sorry, and that is where you are trying to be too humble. You keep saying sorry, but aren't sure why. Have you found yourself in that situation?
People who do
whereby you're always saying sorry. I mean, someone could come on to you and say you did this, but before you actually ascertain whether you actually did that thing, you're saying sorry literally all the time. Sometimes you don't have to always say sorry. You can stand up for yourself and and say, you know what, I did not do this, or I did this for this particular reason, so that you can be understood. And it's very important.
Again, people who do that are overcompensating. You're compensating for something. You want to be liked. You are a pushover. Again, it takes it back. You're not being humble. You're a pushover and you're overcompensating for an insecurity that you have. And I'm going to stick to that. You're not going to apologize if you are confident in the fact that you did nothing wrong.
But we also talked about people who are naturally humble. You said it comes naturally.
People
now,
who are
most people will always say sorry even when there's no need.
Aggie, please do not mistake
that is an
me.
assumption.
Hold on. Please,
not actually an assumption.
Again, people who are naturally humble, and have the virtue of humility are going to seek to understand. I hurt your feelings. How? What did I do? You're asking questions because you want to understand the other person. That is humility. So that you understand what it is that you did, so that you don't do it again. Help me understand, how did I hurt you? You did this, 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 this. I'm sorry, it was not my intention. How can we move forward from this situation? Humility.
You see,
I am not here.
You see how it's turned around?
Why? Exactly.
You see how it's turned around?
You
know how they say in the Bible, like, if your neighbor slaps you on the left
Turn
cheek,
the other cheek, please.
Now, that right there is not exactly what you're supposed to do. Now, for very many people think that is humility. That if you're attacked, look away. No, that if you're told to do a certain thing and you cannot do, just go ahead and do it. No, that's not humility. That is why I kept on saying that even while Sarah is mentioning that Jesus is the perfect example of humility, very many people have lost it under that.
Exactly.
They hide under, they think humility is hiding under the fact that you're supposed to be poor, now you're humble. They think humility is, first of all, they're hiding ignorance under humility. Then they're hiding the fact that they are not good public speakers under humility, the fact that they are not team players under humility. And being humble is just accepting that you are in wrong. You know, certain times we do things to people, you know you're in wrong, but you go around carrying your head like, yet you know you did something wrong. Calm down. And then you think you're being humble. No, you're not being humble. You're stepping on someone else's feelings. Someone else got hurt because of something that you said or something that you did. Again, if I would ask this question, if you woke up in the morning, and these are things that we sometimes take for granted, and I know this is something that you advocate for, Sarah, that when you come in the morning, what does it take away from you if you greet the person at the gate? If you find the lady that cleans or the gentleman that cleans, what does it take away from you when you say good morning? But for some people, they will do it because they want to be seen a certain type of way. That is why I'm saying humility. There are people who cannot do those things and then they claim to be humble. What humbleness do you have?
I saw a quote that said, watch how people treat people who can't do anything for them. It goes back to, you have to respect people. If you go to a public washroom and you find a lady or a gentleman sitting there collecting, money and handing out toilet tissue, that person is at their job. They are working. They are an authority in that space. You understand? So respect them. Do you understand? If you walk into a mall and you find security guards at the checkpoint, they are an authority in that place. So respect them. People, if you ever go out with somebody and you see them ill-treating a waiter or waitress, then that is somebody, I don't care how good they are to you, but if they are treating another person badly, that is a red flag. That is not a good person.
That means if you were that person, they would treat you the exact same way.
And we only say that somebody is humble because of the way that they treat us individually.
Or like, maybe the way they appear.
Not even the way they appear, because of how you perceive them or how they treat you. You're going to say, oh, Aggie is a humble person because she treats me nicely. But then Aggie is going on to treat everybody else, horribly.
There's a phrase.
So you need to check that. You need to check people like that. Somebody who talks to somebody from the gate all the way to office, all the way. Now those are people that are just find pleasure in making somebody else happy.
Exactly.
You get, like, it's not even about you. And it's not even about the fact that I am respecting you, but it makes me happy to see you happy. You understand? Good morning, how are you? Oh, did you eat today? Do you want to share my lunch? Like, it makes them, people who are humble at heart, it brings them pleasure when they see other people, you know, happy. You may not be able to take away all their problems. Look at Mother Teresa. She's not able to take, she wasn't able to take, you know, with all her years of working, you know, for free, to help other people, using her influence to make other people's lives better. It brought her so much pleasure to see other people smile and happy.
Okay. There is a phrase, I've just forgotten how exactly it states, but it's and I'll paraphrase. It talks about, I am who I am when I am, like, you can tell who a humble person is when you are aware. Like, see them. Like, you know how a boss is better off noticing how you treat other people or how you behave when they are not watchdogging you. But when they're around, you're going to behave a certain type of way. For example, if your parents are around, you're going to behave a certain type of way. But when they are not around, you behave a different type of way. And now that is the real you. Like the way you behave towards people when no one is watching. That is the real you.
Yes. Well, these are some of the ways that you can actually, you know, stand up for yourself and be yourself without being too overly humble. And one of them is speak up. If you think you have skills to complete a task, come forward and tell your team, and that is in regard to the workspace that you are equipped to do it. Do not sit back and wait to be called upon, because I mean, this is an opportunity that could be a once in a lifetime opportunity. If you decide to sit back, then you'll definitely lose out on it, while everyone else doesn't know that you actually have the skills, you're equipped to do that. And the other one is be confident. Talk about your accomplishments and showcase your talent with confidence. You will be recognized as an expert only when you showcase your knowledge with confidence. That do not masquerade as, you know, not being humble, and that will fail. And the other one is don't put others down. And this is the final one and very important. Being confident doesn't mean coming off as arrogant. Voice your opinions and at the same time appreciate others, and that's in regard to gratitude, and also appreciate others' views. This will add value to your character and will make people truly appreciate you. Now, we have heard of us saying that, you know, humility is the surest sign of strength. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's there. But for now, as we wrap up the conversation, I'd like to ask you, like, to give a viewer out there it could be a word of advice on how they can take up space without coming off as arrogant, without coming off as proud, or without being misunderstood by other people in that way.
For me, apologize when you're wrong, and also when you apologize, seek to understand where you went wrong. That is humility. Number 2, ask questions. When you don't know, be honest about it and ask for help. Ask questions, ask for help. That's the third one. Ask for help. Number 4, assist people when they ask you for help. Okay? Help people. Even when you're not asked, go and ask the person, can I help you? Do you need my assistance? Let me, you know, be a team player. All the values and principles of being a teammate, that all encompasses humility. You understand? Number 5, it costs you nothing, absolutely nothing, to show kindness. It costs you nothing. And it's also important to give from your heart. Don't give with ulterior motives where you're like, okay, I'm giving, that means now you owe me a favor. You're going to have to return it. No. Give from the, you know, the goodness of your heart. Yes, from your heart. Give because you want to give. And the best way to give is when you do not expect to reciprocate. And number 6 is respect everybody, whether they are a superior, whether they are, you know, a subordinate, whether they are a colleague, whether you even respect everybody. Even if when you don't understand what it is they do for a living, just respect people. It's just, and also be courteous. It doesn't cost you anything to be courteous.
Mine would be 1, the first way you can still remain humble but not coming off as proud and arrogant is 1, stick to your principles. Do not lower your standards because someone feels that when you do a certain thing or when you say a certain thing, you're not being humble or you're not showcasing humility. Secondly, learn to apologize. Very many times we do hurtful things to people and we think it is okay. Like there's a time we had a conversation about, does this generation feel like they're too cool to care?
Yeah.
Let's break that too cool to care syndrome altogether. Like if you are meant to show up at an event, for example, and you did not, and someone you know is blowing up, be courteous enough to say, you know what, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, because they have somewhere you're coming from. But again, the most important is that do not ever lower your standards just because you're trying to prove a point of humility. Humility doesn't pay your bills.
No, it doesn't.
I remember a time when I was, I remember a time, okay, in one of my many jobs that I worked at, right? So my boss used to think that I am a humble person, right? Okay, used to think I was humble. No, used to think I was humble because I would never say no to added work, you know, extra time.
Yes.
So the boss would say, oh, Sarah, take this up, or so-and-so is not going to be, you know, able to come, so you cover for them. And I always found myself having to, you know, have to cancel my plans and have to literally break my back because I was afraid to say no. Now that is not being humble. That is not humility. Aggie was saying that it is not humility. That is being a pushover.
Yeah.
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
I was a pushover until I was like, you know what? I'm sorry, son. No. Until I started saying no and being humble. There's nothing wrong with saying no. You can be humble and say no. I apologize.
In the most
I'm not be able-
respectful way.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the most respectful.
In the most
I
respectful
apologize. I'm not able to do that for you. Or no. Yes.
Well, the ladies just said it, but earlier they told me something that Siobhan is too cool to care. I don't know how true that is. Dennis is the one who said
Who
that.
is too cool to, I don't think
But anyway.
that's not true. I'm a very empathetic and emotional, like the small things really get to me. So why would I be too cool to care?
Well, we can continue this conversation on our social media platforms, and that is Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at CTV Uganda. But for now, this is Sunrise at Sea. Don't blink, but also do practice humility.
Well, that wraps up our show today right here on Sunrise at Sea. I hope you had a wonderful time with us today. And CTV will be following closely the pilgrims on their pilgrimage to the Uganda Matters Shrine Namugongo for the, Uganda Matters Day celebrations that are due to take place on the 3rd of June 2022. Like you saw with our report and with Priva, she did show you that, a good number of pilgrims had already made their way to Namugongo, and CTV will be following that up. Well, our conversations do continue on social media, and you can tell us all about humility. Are you a humble person? Could it ever be a bad thing? Let us know your thoughts and connect with us across all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're just tuning in right now, do not despair, because this episode of Sunrise at Sea will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and that's at CTV Uganda. Well, until tomorrow, same time, same place, be kind. Humility is a good virtue. Also practice patience and follow SOPs, all right? And I hope you're sleeping under a treated mosquito net, because it's raining these days. And also keep warm from the ladies and I. Have a great day. Bye-bye.